أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone. Inshallah, if you've looked at the calendars for this week, we are going to be commemorating the 40th, the Arba'een. That means that it's been 40 days since we commemorated the tragedy of Karbala on the day of Ashura. So what is the Arba'een? The Arba'een is actually an Arab tradition from the time, during the time of the Holy Prophet. And what the people used to do is they would commemorate for 40 days. They would remember their martyrs. They would remember the tragedy of their family members, of their friends who were killed. And this was in an effort to keep their memory alive, to make sure that their messages weren't forgotten. And so all these years later, we as Muslims of the Shia also commemorate it in every Arba'een, usually when there hasn't been COVID, and when it's been safe to go. Thousands and millions of people from around the world, from America, from Africa, from Australia, from everywhere, every corner around the world, people flock to Iraq, people flock to Karbala to pay their respects, to remember Imam, to remember the message that he stood for, to pay their condolences to him, to pay their respects to Hazrat Abbas. And this is so that we can maintain their memory, to remember, to remind one another as well of the freedom, of the dignity that they stood for, and they fought so hard to save the religion of the Holy Prophet. So inshallah, this week when we commemorate the day of Arba'een, please remember us and your families and your friends in your prayers, and inshallah we will do the same. It's so good to have all of you back on our trip through the Arabic alphabet. Today we're going to be... Ooh, I hear a rumble. Do you hear a rumble? What's happening in your belly? Is it the breakfast from this morning that's making all the noise? I wonder. But today we actually get to follow our friend Jean. He's our letter friend for today. And he makes the ja sound, like the jumping sound. I wonder why. Maybe he's got a spot in his belly that makes all the jumping sounds. Let's listen up. Let's watch to see what Jean is all about.
This letter is called Jim. It is a light letter and should not be pronounced heavy. In English, it sounds like the letter J in the word jam or the word jug. It is not pronounced as ga, as in the word game, nor is it pronounced as the French ja. This is what Jim looks like at the beginning, like this in the middle, and like this at the end of a word. Here are some examples. Ja in the word jamal, which means a camel, or ja in the word jabal, which means mountain.
I hope Jim isn't too hungry, because we're ready to bounce into the rule of Qalqala. Speaking of bouncing, did you know that there are some letters that act like bumper cars? What do bumper cars do? That's right, they go bump! So when some of these letters, these 5 letters, there's 5 of these letters, but when these 5 letters have a sukoon on them, they go bump, bump, bump. It sounds like that to our ears. So I told you there are 5 of them. Do you have any ideas which ones they would be? I'll give you a hint. You know our letter friend Jean? He is one of them. Let's listen closely to find out the other 4. And then we can make the bumping sound together every time we come across them.
The word qalqala means shaking or movement. In Tajweed terminology, it means the movement or vibration of the makhraj with the pronunciation of one of these letters when they are sakin. It is caused by a sudden release of the flow of sound after it has been trapped under pressure in the makhraj, producing an additional sound which gives emphasis and clarity to the letter. It is like an echo sound. Here are some examples. The letter qaf. The qaf has a sukoon. It reads falaq, and this reads uqsimu. Notice how the qaf was echoed? I didn't say uqa with a fatha, and I didn't say uqu with a dhamma. I said uqsimu with an echo. The letter ba. The ba has a sukoon and needs to be echoed. It reads lahab, and this reads habalun. I didn't say haba with a fatha or habu with a dhamma. I said hab with a slight echo. The letter dal. The dal has a sukoon. It reads samad, and this reads qadarun. The letter ta. The ta has a sukoon. It reads muhit, and this reads nutafa. The letter jim. The jim has a sukoon. It reads haraj, and this reads fajrun. All these letters are letters of qalqala. You shouldn't pronounce them so much that a fatha or a dhamma is sounded. Some have said that there are a few types of qalqalas and have levels. The qalqala letters at the end of a word should be pronounced with full qalqala, and the ones in the middle should be pronounced a little softer. Get familiar with this rule first, and then you can advance onto different types of qalqalas. Just a precaution, don't do qalqala on other letters. For example, you don't say udhkuru with a bounce. You say udhkuru, not udh. It's udh. Or here, it says ismuhu and not isamuhu, as if you're bouncing the letter.
All this talk about bumping and echoing sounds, it reminds me of the ocean. What kinds of animals can you imagine that swim under the ocean? I absolutely love watching dolphins jump in and out of the water, especially early in the morning when the sun is rising behind it. Have you ever seen that? Alhamdulillah, I've been able to see that. Did you know that dolphins have their own ways of communicating with their other dolphin friends? How do you communicate? So I use words, I use my hands, sometimes I use my eyes. So we use body language and we use words to communicate with each other. Sometimes we can even write to each other. But dolphins, can you imagine? They have their own language as well. So they use clicking sounds and they use whistles. And these whistles sometimes sound like echoes to us. They have the most amazing communication that God has created. Can you imagine? I think it's such an awesome, I just think the ocean is so extremely exciting. And not only does it have the most amazing creatures that live under there, but it also is a type of water. It also has one of the types of waters that makes the najis thing tahir. Do you know that? Imagine how vast, how big the ocean is. We can hardly ever see everything that's underneath there. Even if I wear my binoculars, when we're on shore, we can hardly see anything underneath them. Did you know that there are different types of waters that we're going to learn about today? Let's have a listen.
There are different types of water. First, we have mutlaq water, which is pure water. Second is mudaf water, which is mixed water. For example, juice and soda. Mutlaq water has different types. 1 is rainwater. 2, water from a well. 3, running water like a spring. 4, water that is still and not running. Still water is divided into 2 types. 1 is called gur water, which is water that fills a large container of about 400 liters like a pool. Second is qalil water, which means water that is less than gur water. For example, a bottle of water. Now, if something najis falls into gur water, like blood, it stays pure and tahir if its color, smell or taste does not change. For example, blood fell into the pool that was gur, i.e. about 400 liters. Did the color change? Yes, then that part of the pool is najis. The rest is still pure. If something najis like blood falls into qalil water, the whole thing is najis, even if its color, smell or taste did not change. For example, blood fell into this bottle, but the color did not change. The whole bottle is still najis.
You know, hearing about all this water made me so thirsty. I needed to get a drink. So, I wonder what my glass of water is called. Is it qaleel or is it qur? Is it qaleel or is it qur? If you said qaleel, you're so right. So it's not moving on its own. I have to move it, and it's not mixed. So that makes it, is it mudaf or mutlaq? Makes it mutlaq. You know, my mom taught me an easy way to remember mutlaq and mudaf. The D, the D sound in mudaf sounds like dirty, which means it's mixed. So if it's clear and it's not moving on its own, it's qaleel and it's mutlaq. We need to be super careful of najasa and tahara at all times, especially in the toilet or in the bathroom. So definitely we must wash our hands once we're done using it. But did you know that the Ahlul Bayt, beautiful family of the Prophet, they taught us to do other things to help stop the spread of germs. Like, for example, that's right, wear slippers when we go in. So here are some other teachings that we should definitely try and practice.
Apart from simple hygienic acts like washing your hands and wearing slippers while using the bathroom, there are other rules that should be followed. It is mustahab to enter the bathroom with your left foot. It is makruh to urinate while standing. It is wajib to cover one's private parts in front of others while using the toilet. You should not keep your back or front of your body towards the Qibla, i.e. Mecca, while using the toilet. It is makruh to eat, to take way too long, or to wash yourself with your right hand while using the toilet. Unnecessary talk is also makruh unless it is dhikr, i.e. remembering Allah. Now one must make themselves pure from the impurities such as urine and stool, otherwise one cannot fulfill their acts of worship such as prayer. As for the urinary organ, nothing will make it tahir, i.e. pure, except for pure water. Therefore, wiping with a cloth or tissues will not be sufficient. Washing it once is enough, as long as all signs of urine are removed. Although, as a recommended precaution, if one uses qaleel water, i.e. little water, like a bottle or a jug, it should be washed twice. But some have said it is wajib to wash it twice. It is mustahab for males to perform istibra' after urinating, which is explained in detail in your Islamic laws book. As for cleaning oneself after excreting, your bottom can be purified with water as long as there is no traces of feces left. If you washed it once and there are no particles left, then you don't need to wash it a second time. You can also clean your bottom with a cloth or even a stone as long as they are dry and tahir themselves. It is better to clean it 3 times but using 3 pieces. And if you are still not clean, you should continue using pieces of cloth or stones till you become clean. It is haram to purify yourself with things that must be respected, such as paper on which the name of Allah and the Prophets are written, and etc. Good habits such as cleaning the bathroom, not using excessive toilet paper and splashing water everywhere should be observed. Then it is recommended to leave the bathroom with the right foot. It is mustahab to urinate before prayers and before sleeping, and to cover one's head. Note, if you doubt whether you purified your private parts or not after performing your prayers, it is still valid, but you must purify them for the next prayer.
So if you haven't already, remind your families of these great habits taught to us from the Ahlul Bayt that you've just learned about. In these habits, we notice that the teacher says that some of them we must do, they have to be done, and some of them are possible or recommended to do. So we know and believe that God exists. He's definitely there with all that we see around us, with all that we hear, with all the blessings that we have. But there may be times when we need to explain this belief to others. So the teacher in this next video has some awesome examples to help. Let's watch and learn.
How to prove the existence of God the simple philosophical way. Let's go over some terms before we start. The word necessary existent, wajib al-wujud, means an existent which does not need, require or depend upon any other existent for coming into being. A possible existent depends on something else for it to be realized. For example, this table depends upon wood and a carpenter. Let's explain further. A statement has two parts, a subject and a predicate. A predicate states something about the subject. If I say the sun is above my head, the sun will be the subject, above my head will be the predicate. To establish the predicate for the subject, it can only have three states. Number 1, impossible. It is like me saying the number 3 is greater than 4, and this is impossible. Number 2, necessary. It is like me saying 2 is half of 4, and this is necessary as it's always the case. And 3, possible. It is like the table example we gave. It is possible to exist, but it depends upon the material. So going back to the statement, the sun is above my head. Is it impossible for the sun to be above my head? No. Is it necessary for the sun to be above my head? No, because it's not always above my head. Is the sun possible to be above my head? Yes, because it depends on movement for it to be realized. So in philosophy, they don't study the impossible, because there is no point discussing if 3 is greater than 4. And also only existence is discussed in philosophy. So that leaves us with the necessary and possible. So when we say something exists, it leaves us with 3 likelihoods. Number 1, everything that exists is necessary. 2, everything that exists is possible. Or 3, some existences are necessary and some are possible. Number 1, everything that exists is necessary is impossible. Why? This car or this human, are they necessary? Did they depend on anything else to be realized or come into being? Of course they did. The car depends on material or on engineers and etc. The human depends on its mother and its father to be realized. So this crosses out everything that exists is necessary. Second likelihood, everything that exists is possible. It's like me saying C was caused by B, and B was caused by A, and A was caused by Z, and Z was caused by so and etc. This will go on forever, and this is impossible, and also known as an infinite regress, because logically we know that it must stop somewhere. What if A created B, and B created C, and C created A? Also known as a vicious circle, this is also impossible. So this crosses out everything that exists is possible. This leaves us with the third likelihood, which some existence are necessary and some existence are possible, which is the correct answer. And a necessary existent that does not need, require or depend upon any other existent for coming into being could only be God, which will be explained in further lessons.
So, if I have some friends coming over to play Scrabble, what am I going to need? So I've got my Scrabble board, I've got my Scrabble tiles, I've even got a pencil in here and some paper to write down our points. But when they come, we might decide to play something else, and that's okay. Just like that, some things are absolutely necessary to have another thing, and other things are possible to have something, but nothing we can see is absolutely necessary or possible. I hope this makes sense. Oh gosh! I almost forgot. It's nearly lunchtime for me. I wonder if I can sit in a spot where I cannot be seen by anyone or anything. Do you think it's possible? I bet the next video will help answer my question. Are you ready to come along and find out?
One day, the teacher walked into her class and handed everyone an apple. After a few minutes, she asked everyone to eat the apple in a place where no one could see them. Some of the students left the classroom and hid outside. Others went under their desk. Some stood in the hallway.
Everyone in the class started eating their apple, except one boy. His name was Hassan. The teacher asked Hassan why he hadn't eaten his apple. Hassan replied, "I couldn't find a place where Allah could not see me." The teacher became very happy with Hassan and told the rest of the class that no matter where we go or where we hide, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always know what we do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything that happens in the world. Allah knows what people do in private, and He knows the secrets they have in their heart. He knows everything that we do. In Arabic, this name is Al-Alim, which means Allah knows everything.
So, what do you think? Is it possible for me to sit under the table so nobody would know? I don't think so. With Allah being Al-Alim, my plan is definitely not going to work. I think I'll sit with my family at the table when I'm ready. Speaking of family, we've been commemorating the revolution of Imam Hussein and his family over the last few weeks. Remember, we said the 40th is coming up. This revolution that Imam fought for is incredible. He was so far ahead of his time that when he says a man like me cannot give bay'ah, cannot give allegiance to a man like Yazid, he knew the effects of his revolution that would echo through the years, through all these 1400 or so years. And we see that people all over the world today, they're fighting for intellectual, they're fighting for political, they're fighting for social justices and freedoms. Are you wondering what I mean by this? Let's watch our last video for today to learn.
No evolution exists in the history of the world like the revolution of Imam Hussein, which shook the world, bestowed glory for truth, and created dignity for human beings. Studies showed that the revolution of Imam Hussein was the first revolution in human history from the aspect that on it were built intellectual, social, and political foundations. Some of them are the victory of Islam. It was at a time when Islam was at a dark stage and its future had no hope. Imam Hussein's revolution restored its freshness and destroyed the darkness around it. The first clear victory that the Imam earned was the defeat of the Umayyads, because it destroyed all the pillars and foundations raised by Muawiyah for strengthening the regime of Abu Sufyan's family. The revolution proved that the Umayyads were not true followers of the religion of Islam, cutting the water supply, the killing of the Imam and companions, cutting bodies into pieces, then taking the family of the Prophet as hostages around towns and cities to announce the defeat of the Prophet's family publicly. Then Yazid clearly announcing he did this in revenge of his ancestors in the Battle of Badr. Thus, all these facts clearly proved that the Umayyads were not true followers of Islam. Among the signs of the Umayyad defeat was that their condemnation became a normal thing, and people in all gatherings and assemblies openly criticized their policies and evils. The revolution brought out the illuminated reality of Ahlul Bayt and proved to the world of Islam their powers in being steadfast on truth, their firmness in face of calamities, and their sincere concerns for the future of the Islamic community. As a result of it, the majority of Muslims began to love and regard them with respect. The tragedy of Karbala clearly showed that the Ahlul Bayt were lofty examples of spiritual and practical leadership of the community and the leaders of truth and justice on the earth. Imam's movement was effective in creating social awareness by bringing out the revolutionary spirit to stand up and fight injustice and oppression in people. It became armed with faith and power of determination and changed the meaning of fear and surrender. The revolution stimulated the blooming of talents and capabilities. It created an outstanding kind of literature in the literacy world. The literacy of the revolution is so rich that it extolled social justice and human values, for whom the great Imam struggled. It condemned oppression and fought falsehood and confronted arrogance. It motivated the society towards honor and lofty purpose by following Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The revolution gave rise to platforms of propagating the message of Imam Hussein, which to this day has played an important role in imparting lessons of righteousness and piety to the people. Many uprisings continue to fight injustice and oppression right after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. the uprising in Medina, the uprising of the people of Kufa, the uprising of Mukhtar, the uprising of Zayd, and so on. The revolution of Imam Hussein began a new era for the people of the world. Its immortal lessons regarding belief will never be overpowered. Its faith will never be defeated, and its loftiness will never be humiliated. The spirit of this revolution will always oppose oppression and injustice.
If we take the flag of Al-Abbas and stand on the platform of Imam Hussein, you and I, we also can be part of the revolution against the Yazid, against the injustices of our time. Because if we want to be Husseini, we can't give bay'ah, we can't pay allegiance to the Yazids of our time, can we? I wonder what we're going to do, or I wonder what we've done this year to be part of the revolution of Imam. I think I'm going to discuss this with my family over dinner today. Maybe you can do the same with yours as we prepare for the Arba'een of Imam this week. It'll give us an opportunity to have good discussions, to think and to brainstorm together with our families so that inshallah we can stand with them to fight against the injustices of our time. Inshallah, we will see you again next week. Please remember us in your du'as and give our salam to Imam al-Mahdi when you send yours. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.